Welcome back to the Imperfectionist Podcast. My name, as always, is David Rendall, and we have some special guests today, Jim and Jamie Shiels. They're going to introduce themselves, and I'll do a little bit of introducing, but I've known them for years and years. Met them through, I think, EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and I've worked with their family directly, worked with their family friends directly. I think one time what happened was they booked me to speak to their family group, some family friends of theirs and family and friends of theirs and their families. And I went down to the Keys, and then they put me and my family up at a really nice house in the Keys. And then I went over there and spoke to them and hung out for a little while, and then went back and hung out with my family. So a nice little way to do things, a little barter system.
Yeah.
So we've known each other for years and years and years, and they have kids, and they have a lot of kids, and they love kids. And when our other kids get older, they're like, "What if we brought in some younger kids to replace the older kids?" I'm exhausted just watching it, but that's part of the Imperfectionist Podcast. Is some people love what other people are not as excited. And so that's part of what we're going to talk about. So Jim and Jamie, introduce yourselves to the listeners. Tell them a little bit about, maybe what you do, but also just kind of who you are, how you met, that kind of stuff. Give us a little Jim and Jamie memoir.
It's fun.
I'd say this will require the woman's touch with intro.
Oh, but remember, as Dave said not too long ago, it may not be functional. It might be fancy, but it may not be super functional. But here we go. So yes, we do have a lot of children. We have 5. We're a blended family and of adoptive and biological children. Our oldest is 22. He is to be married in a year and a half.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And our youngest is 4. Almost. She's not even 4 yet.
For those not counting, that's 18 years in between. So you got a kid in college. When you have a kid in formula and diapers, that's a serious thing.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was fielding first mortgage phone calls in 25. So in 23, I'm on the phone with our oldest who was purchasing his first home, and I hang up and I'm running the little one to the toilet because she was learning how to potty train. And I was like, I didn't think this through. Like, I should not be doing all of the phases at one time. This is
You're doing mortgage training and potty training simultaneously. Those are not usually.
They have some crossover.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And so that was, that's kind of our life in a nutshell, and then Jim always says we're one giraffe.
One giraffe short of Noah's Ark here. With all the animals we have.
We do.
You also have a lot of animals. I thought you were talking about your children like animals, which is unacceptable.
Well, they are, them too, but then actual 4-legged creatures.
Yeah. So Jim told me we're not allowed to bring any more animals home. So we now have a farm that has goats, guinea pigs, and rabbits currently.
She's working on a llama. What are those things? Is it a llama?
It's an alpaca.
Alpaca, Dave.
We went to an alpaca farm.
Have you ever been in the
alpaca? Come on, Jim.
Shop?
Everybody knows the difference between an alpaca and a llama, except nobody knows the difference between an alpaca and a llama.
Alpacas are nicer. Llamas spit.
Okay.
Yeah, see, Dave?
Yeah.
But they look similar. They look
so.
similar, right? And people use them in similar ways, but they're sort of from different parts of the world or something like that.
Maybe so. Here's the thing. We whenever we travel,
this is now a biology podcast, zoology.
Oh, this is called Crazy Family.
Okay, so we world school. That's one thing that we were told we were crazy 4 years ago. We would take our children on big 6-week chunks, either cross country in an RV with all of us, and Jim working and us podcasting and doing all of life on the road. Or, we lived in Costa Rica part-time for 5 years. And so we take our children all over the world, and we have amazing, inspiring experiences. Sometimes it's really insane. I mean, a lot of times it's really insane. But recently we did a trip, not so far, but we went to New Jersey, and we always find...
Yeah, who would have thought you do alpaca shopping?
Okay, so
that's I don't know if that counts as world school. That's I-95 school. That's
I know.
That's
urban school.
Places to go.
But here's what happens. No matter where we go, we find, nature or culture or service.
Yeah.
And so in the town we were in, there wasn't a whole lot going on, but there was Ralph's Silver Fox Alpaca Farm. And so we went and
when you think farms and you think alpacas, you think New Jersey. I think everybody knows that. Everybody knows.
And what's so amazing about our family is that after we went to the alpaca farm, and I'm texting our older boys who are at home and I'm letting them know, like, hey, maybe we'll add alpaca to the farm and so on. The next day we're on the airplane flying home, and my son sees on our Instagram feed the alpaca, like pictures of the alpacas. And he texts me and he's like, are you bringing home an alpaca? And he was certain. And I was like, probably not on the airplane. But our 20-year-old son really thought.
People have tried. I think people have had to have tried. People have showed up at security and been like, what do you mean I can't?
Nobody wants to search an alpaca, though. That's
what do you mean? Somebody showed up at baggage, what do you mean you can't just tag it? So that's a good jumping off point. Let's start there with world schooling. The last people I talked to, Jim and Jason Kotecki, they're cool speaker friends of mine from Wisconsin, and they do what they call unschooling. Mm-hmm. So they not only homeschool, but they're not just doing school at home, right? They're not just going, okay, we're going to do it ourselves, but here's the geography textbook, and here's the history textbook, and here's the science textbook. It's borderline like Montessori style, like, what are our kids interested in? How do we help them learn? Let's go on this cool trip and learn about Alaska, but in Alaska, not through a geography textbook. So they did unschooling, you did world schooling. So tell us a little bit more about what that is. But before that, tell us how you decided to not do traditional schooling, right? And then tell us how a little more for people who are interested in how the world schooling works.
Well, let me give a story of why I've been reconfirmed of the way we do it. And I'll bring you in on it.
I was going to say, Dave is integral in this part.
Is Dave the hero in this story? Tell me more. Tell me more, Jim.
We're going to give you some props. From our first meeting in the Keys with all the EL and Gathering of Titans guys, I was like,
10 years ago.
Yeah. So our Maggie, who's now becoming a teen almost. Yeah. She was a baby. But we loved your stuff. Our boys now who are, 20 and 22 loved it. They remember it. Our mission, Dave, not only the context like you're talking about, the Montessori or the world schooling or unschooling, the content within, we just felt that people were not getting what they needed. And for what we identified, that was personal development, relationship skills, and financial intelligence. I was never taught those things. And I really need to use those. And one of the times we were in Costa Rica and we were having that small family retreat, and
you came to,
we zoomed you in. And so we've already, Freak Factor for Kids is such a great book. We love that book, and we've read it. I don't know if you remember, and you probably didn't even hear it. I don't think you and I have spoken about this, but the kids are there from 5 to 25, and everyone's gathering and listening to you. And you're kind of reading parts of the book, and you stop and you say the line, it was either, do you sometimes feel like a freak and out of place?
Something's wrong with you.
Like something's wrong with you. And you said it, you're kind of asking the question for people to think about it. And very vocally and very, very kindly and very vulnerably, our little 7-year-old Sammy goes, yeah.
He was actually.
And it just, it twisted my heart, crumbled it, and then filled it back up again. And I was like,
yeah,
these are the kind of lessons I didn't get when I was that age. And
sure.
I was struggling with being the ADD entrepreneur, all sorts of other things going on. And I was like, he feels it, but we're getting him direction for it.
Yeah.
So kudos to you. But the fact that you were asking it more thought-provoking, he answered it out loud for the whole room, and the whole room just kind of melted for him.
Yeah.
But could relate to him at the same time. And so anyway, special moment. And that's just one instance of the type of lessons we want to get our kids, because golly, Dave, where would you and I be if we had gotten those lessons, not when we were, adults compared to kids?
So that's one point. I'll just make it explicitly from what I think I heard you say is not even, I think the schools are doing a bad job of teaching science, math, and history. as much as the schools aren't even offering or pretending or claiming to teach about personal development, financial intelligence, and those kinds of things, right? And also individual uniqueness. Well, that's part of personal development. So you're saying we wanted our kids we prioritize sort of almost a different set of skills than school is even really at least explicitly attempting. Some teachers would say, well, kids would learn this for my class or whatever. It's not on the curriculum most of the time. So that was one of the reasons. And also tell people a little bit more about your background there with, you said entrepreneur, ADHD. Tell them a little bit about what you all are about and then how that ends up going down to your kids. So you have your own business. That makes you a weirdo. I think it's 13% of people. No, seriously, I think 13% of people will ever start a business, much less run it successfully. I think far less ever kind of continue with it. So most people's life experience is at work. So it makes you a little bit of an unusual person in society, just running your own business. Then you added ADHD. So tell us a little bit about that before we get back to World School.
That's great. I think the inception, Jim and I have an education. I build and run and build community for alternative education, Montessori.
Jamie wanted to be clear. I'm smart. I don't know, no, but I think that's important. I think sometimes people think when people are doing alternative schooling, they don't know what's going on or what's going to happen to these kids or whatever, but education and you've been educated as well. Both sides of it. So I think that's great.
Yeah. So, and my heart for it was that it was always alternative. So it was Socratic, like you're saying, it was, question driven and interest driven, and it serves all types of children. So we have 3 so far that we know of that are dyslexic, dysgraphic, dyscalculic, like all of the disses, and
distracted. I just made one up. Distracted.
No, that's great. We'll spell that one with a Y too.
That was good because Jim went off camera while I said that, so that was perfect.
Because he got distracted.
I was doing a plug-in for us so we don't run out of juice.
Yeah. And so using those different modalities and these different pedagogical.
She uses these words, Dave, and I like to use them in the wrong context.
Theories. Okay, so point being is...
I got it, pedagogical. I know it. I've got a doctorate, Jim. I've got a doctorate.
Well, then I shouldn't be on this call with you guys.
Yeah, could you leave Dave?
Scoot over, Jim. Me and the educated people want to get together here.
But you bring the imperfect to the Imperfect podcast.
See, this is what I needed.
So with my little bit of that structured background and then Jim's deep personal and professional entrepreneurial education, that he's done on his own since school. It was a really great melding of our two worlds when we came together. And when we met, I had full custody. I was a single mom of 2 boys. So our 2 oldest asked Jim to adopt them. They were 6 and 8, I believe, when Jim adopted them. And so when he fell in love with me, he fell in love with 3 of us at the same time, which is speak of being a freak. That's no small feat because he did it. There's no better way I could say that.
It speaks to the power of Jamie. If you want this, there's a lot of other stuff you got to sign up for.
She was a pretty big selling point. That's
yeah.
And then we went to have 2 of our own, and then we adopted. The entire family chose that we wanted to adopt our final daughter. So
the 4-year-old. That was neat. Right.
Yeah. So we all got to be a part of choosing, and the big guys got to find out what that big love feels like when you choose somebody. Yeah. So, total side note. And go ahead.
I think Dave was asking about my ADD, and you just got it.
I caught it. I caught the ADD.
I like the point, though.
But I wanted to get back on track. So all of this education stuff, and the alternative, 3 of our boys, I shouldn't out everybody like that. 3 of our children have the, dyslexia, ADD, and our 2 oldest took it as a superpower. Yeah. And I do think a huge part of that is because people like you, Dave, because they have role models. Instead of putting them in a bunch of special classes or telling them they're different and they're whatever, we told them, just as your book does, this is actually the greatest part of you.
Yeah.
You think differently than the majority of the population. And so you get to do special things. So we studied people, we studied you, we studied other famous people that did incredible things in their life that wouldn't have happened if they didn't think in a divergent way. And so I think that what you're doing is so important, because we continue to meet and pour into them experiences that meet them where they're at and show them that there's other people on that same path as them.
Yeah, well, I think taking their own path, like Leland, who you've met a few times, he took talking about going from where I felt shame, where I couldn't sit, just like you, Dave. I felt a lot of shame when I was little, and I couldn't sit still.
Yeah.
And I was clowning around, and I was meant to feel so guilty and just horrible about that. And now it's what has kept me and you into being one of those 13%.
Yeah.
But Leland, again, at that younger age, knew. And so he used to be like, so out on his dyslexia, be like, you know what? When I form my business, I think I should get a tax break for being dyslexic.
Let's talk about dyslexia subsidies.
Yeah, that's what he's like. He's like, I should get a tax write-off. I should get some sort of tax deal on that. And I was like, well, I don't know if you're going to get that, but he would say it in such fun, light humor. I'm like, what a different way to approach. And so I think for me, I didn't have that, Dave. In fact, it was older siblings, sisters who got straight A's, never got a minus on their thing, or a misconduct report. Do you remember that word, Dave? Did you ever get a misconduct report? Talk about
every synonym for misconduct. Inappropriate, obnoxious.
We wasted so many trees on my misconduct reports.
I still have some, I think some people think, and some people certainly probably do this as speakers. They might say, I was poor. They weren't really poor. I was bad in school, but they mostly got A's and had one teacher that didn't like them or something. They call it now having the receipts. My mom kept this big box for me, and I looked through it the other day, and it was again, very well-intentioned stuff from these very appropriate and professional teachers just going, Dave just doesn't apply himself, and Dave's just, out of control. And if he could direct that, energy into something, and just all this negative. And there wasn't one that was what's not good about Dave, or, what Dave could really, this is what's going to make Dave successful. It was all just fix it, broken. So being able to start your kids off with, there's a different end of the story. I mean, that's how the freak factor for kids ends. Sometimes the weirdest and weakest kids make the best adults, right? And you've become a successful adult after having a difficult educational experience, but in which no one told you it gets better, right? And you've spent your kids' whole life telling them, don't worry, it's going to, not even don't worry, let's celebrate, right? Yeah. So I want to pick up on a couple of things from what you said, just to tie it into the framework. So two of the big things in Freak Factor is acceptance and appreciation. Acceptance says, I accept you for who you are, and I'm not trying to change you, right? It's not appreciation, but we can't appreciate something if we don't accept it. If you're still trying to fix it and you're still trying to change it, you can't appreciate it. What I always tell people is, if you don't understand the difference, go home to your spouse and tell them, after hearing me speak, tell them I heard Dave talk, and I just want you to know I accept the fact that we're married. Nobody's going to respond positively to that. But if you come home and say, and now I appreciate you even more than I did before, the other person's like, okay, I'm listening, but you should have appreciated me even more previously. But they at least, and so what you did for your kids was you accepted them and appreciated them, and which also then taught them that they could accept and appreciate themselves, right? Because if we're busy rejecting, criticizing, sanctioning, punishing for things that they didn't have any control over to begin with, dyslexia and stuff like that, then they're, like you said, the shame, right? The subtitle of the book is Discovering Uniqueness by Flaunting Weakness, and flaunt means to parade without shame, right? Like your son's like, where's my tax benefits, right? That's a whole different thing than, why am I broken? When will I ever be successful? How come I lost the genetic lottery, right? One fun tie-in, by the way, that the listeners won't know, but is that I have a special connection to Leland, because not only is he kind of he's the oldest, right? Is he the oldest?
He's the second.
Second. Well,
Alden's the oldest.
And seconds are better, because I'm a second. but he was older in the process, right? So he kind of understood it more than, like the newborn did at the time. But my grandfather, who was born in 1920, his name was Leland. And so we've got that little connection where when I hear that, and one of my kids, I have 3 daughters, one of my kids has promised if she has a boy, she'll name him Leland. So I'm excited about that. I've got a Leland potentially in my future. My dad's name is Vern. I have not been able to sell that. I have not been able to sell that. But old kind of school names are coming back. People calling their kids Winston and Owen and stuff like they're naming their kids, their kids come out as 80-year-olds. Here we go. We're getting off track again. But I think that acceptance and appreciation is really big. And I think you all, and then you're doing the next step, which is if you really appreciated it, you'd amplify it. So you're not just saying, so we appreciate you, so go to school and get A's. You're saying we appreciate you. So what if we helped you find situations that fit you instead of forcing you into situations that didn't? And what if we gave you permission to be even more of who you were instead of less? And for a lot of people, we talk about alignment. I tell them if you can't find the right fit, create it. And as an entrepreneur, you're modeling for your kids that you can create the right fit. But I want to say one more thing before I turn it back over to you, because this is so important. What you're doing is really important. We should actually team up on this a little bit, because I've actually challenged the entrepreneurs a lot of times when I speak to them, because more and more I speak to the couples, or I also speak to the families. And what I tell them is I'm not generally very kind of pushy about it, and the message is fun and funny and interesting and whatever. But here's an interesting pattern I've noticed, and you guys didn't do it, which is I think what's interesting here is somebody like Jim struggles in school, right? He succeeds in his adult life in an unconventional way. He gets married, he has a family, they live in a nice house in the suburbs, they have friends at the country club, and now they want their kids to succeed in socially acceptable, normal ways. Go to school, get good grades, go to a good college, get a good job, maybe start a business, but at least go to Princeton first, go to Stanford first. I want you to be the kind of person I can brag about to my successful and wealthy friends, even though, and this is what I challenge them on, I didn't become wealthy and successful by doing things the way that I want you to do them. And that's what I've told them is the danger. I'm like, be careful that you don't push a definition of success that you couldn't even accomplish on your own, right? And so what I love about what you did, and this is why my daughters went to 3 different kinds of high schools. Each of my kids went to a different school, because I told my wife, and I said it explicitly, I succeeded in an unconventional way, and I have an unconventional life and unconventional work. Why can't they go to unconventional schools? So like one of my kids was in gymnastics, and there was a weird schedule around that, and she really loved it, but it didn't fit with the traditional school schedule and her personality and some health things, just a bunch of stuff. And we found an online program for her through a university where she went to high school and got 2 years of college from a MacBook in our upstairs outside of her bedroom on the landing at the top of the stairs. And she had a wonderful high school experience that fit her perfectly, that was completely unconventional, only because I was wanting to give her the permission that no one gave me, and also acknowledge I'm only successful in an unconventional way. I need to be able to give them permission. So that's what I love that you're doing, and it's a great message for entrepreneurs. And I know you teach parenting and stuff like that, but I think that one particular mistake happens a lot. I got a nice house, nice cars, I make a lot of money, and so I have wealthy and successful friends, but just by averages, most of those wealthy and successful friends have regular jobs, went to nice schools, and did it in a different way. And now I want my kids to be the kind that I can brag about to my friends. And I can't, because I got a little dyslexic kid or a little ADHD kid. So what you're doing is so important, because it's unfair. Because also, who gave them the genetics with the dyslexia and the ADHD? It's like, I made you this little dyslexic kid, I made you this little ADHD kid, and now I'm telling you to succeed in a conventional way, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting riled up. You guys got me fired up.
I think this is something Jamie and I are very passionate about, and we've made. I think the second biggest mistake, Dave, which I know you face because you and I have had offline conversations, is entrepreneurs trying to force their kids into the business they've created. That's a horrible idea. I think
right. I mean, to think that, right, to think school, pretty broad, but to think that your kids are just automatically suited to run your business or be involved in your business. That's another. I wanted my kids to know entrepreneurship was an option, but sure. I didn't want them to think it was a requirement. And certainly none of them thought they need to grow up and be a professional speaker, write books, travel around with me, be like a little junior Dave.
No, our idea is college is an option. It is not mandatory. Entrepreneurship is an option. It's not mandatory. And the more we can leave that door open, that's when the freak can start to come out.
Yeah. And, you know, from that first retreat that we were together in the Keys, Barrett, our host, what he did for his
Barrett Ursick was there too. Yeah, he's the best.
And so Barrett said, you know, you find out what your children are passionate about, dump gasoline on it and light a match.
Yeah. Amplification, right? Amplification.
Yeah. And I don't know if you remember. Well, that's where I'm going.
I'm sorry, I get ADD excited. Dave,
see, I don't share the studio on my side with anybody. You guys have a tough thing going here.
I'm writing a misconduct.
She's
right
writing.
now.
Send it to me. We'll post it, the misconduct report.
I think my mom has some at the house, Dave. I'm going to take a picture of it and text it to you.
All right, you were talking about Barrett, and then you said something about a kid, and you said I'm saying it. So
and
you back on your own track.
She's ADD too.
Well, here's the thing: it's not that I'm ADD; it's that my brain just will skip, and then I'm like, blink, blink. You interrupted me, and now we totally missed the table on the roulette, and the ball doesn't know where the hell.
I'm a good listener. My brain can handle it. Plus, I know Barrett. So Barrett, and you wanted to tell me a Barrett, I think, kid story or something.
So Barrett, at our host Barrett, find what they're passionate about, dump gasoline on it, light a match, and, you know, watch it burn.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You know, Barrett and Tina had 4 children. Their first 2 daughters, easy breezy, went to college, did their thing, you know, and I mean, all of them are amazing people. And their son comes along. He's in high school. He doesn't even want to be in high school. He's like, what the heck? I'm not learning anything. I learn differently. I want to fish. I just want to fish. I want to fish. And he was naturally great at fishing. And so Barrett and Tina, as they've shared with us, struggled with that idea of like, well, do we make him complete high school? Can he, you know, do an early graduate? What do we do here? But they were like, okay, he's into fishing. Let him go. Well, by the time
I just want to footnote, he wasn't like partying or drinking.
No,
or being
not at all.
A rebel. He just wanted to fish.
He had his thing. And so fast forward, Tucker went on to do incredible things. I mean, he's been on television for his fishing. I mean, he's a big deal. And because of Tucker, our oldest Alden, who would have been 12 at the time we met you, went on starting at 15. Every month he went down and trained with Tucker, who was just a couple years older than him. So Tucker, as a young, sober, committed, divergent thinker, running his own boat and his own business, took in this young guy, taught him how to do the same thing. And Alden, 22 years old, is running 2 of his own boats that he's purchased on his own out of St. Augustine, Florida, totally crushing it. And he's currently teaching another captain who's just 18 years old, raising him up the same way Tucker did him.
Yeah.
And now if they didn't have freedom, and this is one thing that I think is super important that you touched on, that parents send their kids to college or they tell them what they need to do. But I think Jim and I both just inherently knew our children know what they need to do. All the stuff that gets put on them that totally clouds the fact of like, wait, but I'm interested in fishing. But when people tell you, you can't make money fishing, that's a hobby.
And that is
but he knew it.
True.
But he knew it. And he's crushing it. He has friends still in a college and he's got a home. He's got a
few homes. He's got a few homes now.
No, okay, Tucker. But I'm talking about our
everybody who listens to this is going to have their kids drop out of school and go fishing.
Okay. And then like on the other side, you know, as you're saying, entrepreneur parents, you know, try to send their kids to college. And to us, we knew Barrett being such a great example, you being such a great example. You know, Leland didn't know his path right away.
Yeah.
But he started a business. He was really, you know, he was doing home services. He was crushing it. And then he had a horrific accident. And it's amazing that he's here. And so,
yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing that on social media. Yeah.
And then he struggled because he went from making, 120 grand a year as a 17-year-old with his own business and all of this stuff he couldn't drive himself anywhere.
Right.
He couldn't, like everything unraveled, and he had a lot of questions and a lot of doubt and a lot of like, well, what do I do? It would have been easy for a parent to say, well, now maybe you could go to college, or now maybe here's your path. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
And instead, Jim and I, as hard as it was, but just trusting that he will find it as long as we're here, as long as that space is created. And, he came to us one day and he really, really scared, but he said, I think I know why now. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be an EMT. And so our dyslexic, all these things, amazing young man went to the fire academy, EMT academy. He finished second in his class.
Got about like 152. He was first in physical fitness, where just 2 years earlier, when he had the accident, he couldn't.
In the hospital.
Yeah, and he couldn't walk up and down stairs. Like it was.
Yeah.
And then, he got hired on immediately once he graduated. And he's only been there since April. So we're talking 6-7 months. They nominated him to go on to be a paramedic. And then he got one of 2 scholarships fully funded to do his schooling. Doesn't need it. You know what I mean? This kid is, but because,
but schooling related to what he wants to do, right? I mean, that's
exactly. That's my point. One went totally entrepreneurial. He's doing, and the other one was like, okay, there's a context. I want to serve. I want to help in the same way that I was helped. Yeah. And yet there's steps I need to do to complete that. Yeah. And because he's so driven, and because it's heart-based, and it's because he knows what he's meant to do, he's crushing it.
Yeah.
I would footnote with that, Dave, the one thing Jamie and I did right, the one thing that I've looked back and it's hard, I'm sure, for you two to pat yourself on the back for anything you've done right, but this one I finally owned. When the boys used to come to us and say, I don't know, Mom, Dad, do you think I should do this, or do you think I should do that? We would literally put it back on them and say, hey, we love you, but don't put that on us. I said, I can't see all the things within you. I don't know all the intuitions going on in your gut. This is where the creativity is. This is where the real growth is. Don't worry about what we want, or we think you should do. What do you think you should do?
Well, and that's where the personal
and that gives trust, and that gives like ownership. Yeah. And now it's like, if, like you joked, everyone's going to drop out and be fishing. If I had to be the charter fisherman, we'd all go hungry and be miserable. I mean, I don't even like to bait my own hook. I don't like I'll bait my own hook. I don't like taking the fish off. I always get stuck and we'd be in trouble. Now, if you want,
I get violently ill. Somebody took me out on a great fishing trip one time. I spent the whole time just staring at the horizon, which is what they told me to do, and trying to not just absolutely die. I've never been more sick in my entire life. I never want to be on a boat again for the rest of my life.
There you go. So it's like, if you were like, gosh, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. That was for him, and what Leland was for him. And if you give the space, I think that's one thing we learned. Man, it's a little scary.
It's scary.
If you truly trust and love him, and you think there's something that you can give him space to intuitively pull out of him, I would run out of steam in either of those professions. Yeah. You would run out of steam in those, but you're not running out of steam in the freak factor. I'm not running out of steam with our family stuff.
You guys are giving me chills just on this, just doing this podcast this morning. I mean, hearing these stories is just, this is my thing. I could do this. I could do this all day. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think your stories are good, because respond a little bit to this. I think what a lot of people, when I posted the last interview with Jason and Kim Katecki, who do the unschooling, and we were talking about not being afraid of Mondays, looking forward to your life, not giving up, and thinking being an adult means being disciplined and being professional and doing things you don't want to do and grinding it out and having responsibilities and basically, being miserable, but being effective or successful or whatever that means. And some of the responses, online were like, that's not realistic, So I think one of the big fears that I think people have, and even adults, not just on kids, but even adults, if you go, well, what do you really want to do? They go, well, if I could just do whatever I wanted to do, I just watch Netflix and eat all day. So there's no way to get paid for that. And first of all, that's almost kind of not true. Like people have people online paying money to watch them play video games, for example, on Twitch. Like, you'd be amazed what you could get paid for that's also enjoyable. But how do you respond to that? Because you've seen it happen multiple times. How do you respond to that? If I let my kids do what they want and study what they want, they do nothing and just lay around. How do you respond to that? And did you have to stimulate that in some way, or did they just kind of, have their own drive to do something else? For the people who are afraid, if I tried that with my kids, they would just live with me for the next 30 years, mooch off of me, and just spend all their time playing video games and watching TV and eating my food.
Well, I think was probably two things. I mean, I'll let Jamie talk on the Montessori Waldorf philosophies, which Dave, I would have saved.
Waldorf makes a great salad. I think a lot of people don't talk enough about that.
Okay, side note, anytime we go anywhere, if it's on the menu, Jim's like, you got to get it. It's the Waldorf salad. I'm like,
so that there's that side, but the less, organized side is I just look at myself. Once I left college, Dave, and I was serious about what do I want to do? How am I going to find my way? And I started to save money and pay for personal development events and entrepreneur events that I would go to. I was such a dedicated, energized, persevering student. I just wanted to learn about myself. In the subjects that I was really interested in, and you didn't have to hold me to it. There was no discipline needed. So I think about all those things where there were times I can go back to 7th, 8th, 9th grade or whatever. And I was so convicted that what I was sitting in there and the way I was learning and what I was learning, this will not help my life. This is coming from parents that always struggled with money. There were other things going on. I'm like, this is not going to serve me.
But the thing is, if you sit in there long enough, you convince yourself that actually this is right and you're the wrong one.
But this is what a good person would learn, or this is important. It's almost like you're sinning in a way or doing something morally wrong, right? Like, I know it's wrong, but it feels good. And what I should do is be able to buckle down and do this thing that doesn't feel good, but it's going to pay off, or it's the delayed gratification, right? If I was a good person, I could grind it out in this calculus class. That is one thing. We didn't go full world schooling and unschooling, although we did do homeschooling with one. But to your point, like Barrett's kids, with our oldest, even when she was getting her MBA, she's like, I like school, and I think I might even work at a school because school is a really good fit for me. And we gave her the option to try a different school, and she's like, I like the school I'm at. School was the perfect fit for her, right? So she was learning things. She was learning things in that way. So we did what was right for the kid. But the one thing that I did differently that I wish my parents would have done for me is I didn't lie to them, right? And I give parents this advice all the time. Sometimes they're like, what can I do? I can't change the school system. I can't afford private school. I don't have the equipment or the wherewithal or the time to do one of these alternative school situations. I feel trapped. And I go, at the very least, you can just give them an alternative story to the one they're hearing at school, right? And so when my kids would come home and go, I hate algebra, it's stupid, and I'm never going to use this, I'd go, you know what? You're right. And I've never used it. And unless you go into a math-based field, and even then with computers, as long as you understand the concepts and whatever, the calculations can be done by your phone. But unless you go into a math-based field, which obviously you're not going to if you think this is stupid and you hate it, this will never affect you for the rest of your life, right? I've told this story before on the podcast, so I won't do it too fast, but I think this is relevant to those people who are like, not only is it unrealistic to let my kid do whatever because they'll do nothing, they also think I've got to reinforce what school teaches or else I'm a bad parent, right? Yeah. So my parents would beat me up at home for the things I got beat up at school for, right? I'd get in trouble at home for the things I get double trouble, right? So I remember when my kids were little, it started right away. In kindergarten, they said, your daughter holds her pen wrong. You got to hold it like this, and she holds it one finger down. You got to fix it. So I just acted real interested and then did absolutely nothing about it. I'm like, does she make the letters? They're like, yeah. I'm like, we'll start doing a lot of homework on it. And I just ignored it. Then the next kid comes along. They're like, she goes 3 fingers down. Unacceptable. Oh, very serious. We'll get to work on this right away. Did absolutely nothing about it. Third one comes along. She literally, I don't know how she does it. She goes full on fist. There's a pinky involved somehow in a way that I don't understand. So it's sort of like this. She writes sort of like this. Did absolutely nothing about it. And they're all fine, right? So I think part of it is if you can't, so I'll speak to the people who are like, that's unrealistic, I can't do it. If you can't, at least give your kids an alternative story. The school's upset you don't hold your pen right. I don't care as long as you can make the letters. The school wants you to finish algebra. I don't care. It doesn't matter that much. I think that's hard, though. I tell a story about Paul Orfila, the guy who studied Kinko's, and he got kicked out of 4 schools. That's hard if you're a parent, your kid gets kicked out of 4 schools. He'd lose a job on the first day. They tried to put him in the family business and they fired him, right? The dad fired him from the family business. Then he goes and starts his own business and he sells it for $2.4 billion. But what I ask people is, how do you run a company worth $2.4 billion when you can't read or write? And everybody goes, oh, you just hire people who can. And I go, right. In real life, that's called collaboration. But from age 5 to 18, when you're in school, it's called cheating, and it's the most disqualifying thing that you can do. And there's nobody in this room right now who has a 12-year-old who can't read or write who's like, we'll just hire somebody to do it later. You're panicked. You're like, my kid is illiterate, and there's nothing worse you can be in the world than illiterate. I've got to do something about this, and my kid is fundamentally broken. And yet when you get to the other side, people just go, oh yeah, you just hire somebody who can. Oh yeah, you just make your own business. Oh yeah, yeah. But you've got to remember that lesson all the way back in the beginning, right? And I think that's what's powerful about your stories. I can say this theoretically, but the reason I wanted to have you all on is because you've done the real work of this with real people and also had real success. When you said, and I like it because some people won't talk money, and that's another thing that makes you a weirdo when you're an entrepreneur. You know, sometimes we talk in real money terms, but if you're just talking with your friends and you throw around my 17-year-old makes $120,000, people even like, no, but like, what's the hourly wage? You're like, well, first of all, there isn't one. It's his business. But second of all, people are like, I think that got a lot of people's attention. I want my kid to make $120,000. That's something I could be proud of. And that's something I recognize as success, right? So, yeah, sorry, I got on a little rant there.
No,
but I think that's really important.
Straight line.
Yeah,
here.
no, you're great.
You're on a very straight line here.
I want to circle back because I do think it's important.
Ooh, we got corporate there, educational and corporate. We're circling back. Are we going to talk about Q4 results here before we get into Q1?
You both stop because I'm going to totally forget. I had to write it down.
I write notes. I sit here. I scribble it down. I'm not going to remember it. I scribble it down.
I know, but then I
saw you doing that.
I just have Jamie take notes, Dave. See, that's what.
I'm like, oh, I can't read my handwriting now. No. Okay. So when we think, oh, if they could do whatever they want, if I just let my child do whatever they want. So for those parents that are going to be scared, here's the thing. You really don't just let them do whatever they want. So 2 things, boundaries and expectations, right? And so for us, even when our sons, Leland's a perfect example. After the accident, he had a very legitimate reason to lay around at home all day.
Yeah.
Except I didn't let him. He still had to choose an area to grow in, an area to read in, something physical to do. He had to contribute in the home.
One of the things
I like that. Well, let me give a context for that. I like that. So basically what you're saying is you need to be growing. We won't tell you what you need to be growing in, but you can't just be existing. We don't just flop around here. Exactly. There's some parameters.
Yes.
We would say, this is the thing I'm tying a bow on it. We would say, look, it's okay to do something. It's not okay to do nothing. And that was our whole thing. And so we were like, it's just, that was not an option.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's an important one because sometimes people come to me and they say, my kid won't get a job. My kid just sits around the house, my kid, whatever. And they think that's sort of their freak factor or that's the weakness. I'm like, well, are you offering to pay them to pay for all of that forever? Because most people would take that deal. So what I always told my kids is you don't have to go to college and you don't even have to move out. But once you graduate from high school, you're going to go, that's a terrible face that it decided to save there on the, I don't know what's going on here. Hopefully it's still recording the voice, but you don't have to move out even. You can stay here as long as you want, but you're going to be working, right? You're going to be working. We need to use that as the thumbnail for this.
Yeah, somehow it all of a sudden, there's a great confusion, Dave, between I'll let my kids follow a path of their choice, and everyone's like, no, but they're going to choose nothing, and they're going to lay around. And as long as you're like, hey, that's out of bounds. That's not a choice. We're going to have some parameters.
Yeah.
There's going to be some, pretty wide lane that curiosity can work its magic in, but there's going to be some out of bounds, and that's just out of bounds. It wasn't an option. Like same thing as you. I said there was going to be financial responsibility and such, and so they didn't take that route.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry you have to look at that. I'm going to leave it on in case it is actually recording behind that, but if not, we'll just have audio. And you guys look better anyway, so we'll put it mostly on you. So I like that because I think that's going to help some people. It isn't if I let them choose, they choose nothing. Nothing's not an option, but you have to go to school and get good grades isn't the only option, right? How did you get there? Did you have role models? And you mentioned it like Barrett, and I definitely tell people that, like find for your kids. Here's one thing I tell them: find for your kids heroes that deal with the same thing. So you can't tell your kid dyslexia is a superpower without saying, hey, this guy Richard Branson, who's a billionaire who has his own business, so I think that's one thing that I teach people is find role models for your kids that match the specific thing, dyslexia, ADHD, OCD, autism, whatever it is they're dealing with. How did you get to the point of doing this? Because again, most people don't. So was it the combination of Jamie's education in it and your experience in it where you're just like, we can't make our kids go to normal school? How did you come to that? Did you start slow and ramp it up? How did you end up at the place you are now?
I think that, I think it was exactly what you said. It was a combo of Jamie had this alternative world of education that fascinated me.
I know a lot about development, like human development and appropriate,
So right away,
what is appropriate and what's not appropriate for development. Like it is not appropriate for preschoolers to be reading. Like developmentally, that's not what our bodies are supposed to be doing. And so
we don't just need to be rushing everything.
No, we were just at an event that we taught at in the Keys, Dave, and this guy in my group that we were doing these breakout sessions said they said, name a spot where your life is close to disaster. Their 4-year-old did not get into the prestigious little school they wanted to because their reading wasn't where it should be. And I almost went into shock. I said, do you understand? I said, you need to talk to my wife about developmentally appropriate things. They're not even supposed to be reading that. There's other things they can be working on. And I think we just had that recognition. And for me, one of the most simple ways that I could break this down, Dave, and we talked because we hosted family retreats for selfish reasons to get people around the people like Barrett and you and that. We would lean on fun aunts and fun uncles. So Dave, you're a fun uncle.
Yeah.
Whether you've been labeled that directly or not, you are absolutely a fun uncle. I could try to give this message of fly your freak flag. The things that might seem as a weakness are going to be your strength, and they'll hear me sort of. But when this goofy guy in a pink sweatshirt,
because our oldest daughter is like, wait, people pay you to speak? Why? Why would someone pay to listen to you
True
talk?
story. Like, Dad, people pay you to speak?
So she's
my youngest, who's my toughest customer, I took her to when she was younger, she was also the toughest customer. So I had to wait till she was older to take her on a speech with me because I couldn't trust she wouldn't just leave in the middle and just wander, through San Diego, and I'm on stage and I can't do anything about it. Or I have to, prioritize my daughter over the speech and be like, all right, everybody, it's been good, but I'm babysitting right now. And my baby is out of control. But I took her to this local talk, 20 miles away for 50 people for this bank that used to be one of my customers. And we got done and she goes, that was very interesting. She's probably 8 or 9. You're very good at that. Did you know you're quite funny? I I had my iPad with me, but I wasn't on it the whole time. And it's like, no, I don't need you to tell me. I know I'm good at this, right? But you didn't know because you didn't understand and you just see me as your dad. But I think that's a good one. There's a Bible verse that says a prophet doesn't have honor in their hometown. And almost anybody would tell you that. I mean, let's talk relationships. If I tell my wife, babe, you look amazing in that dress, she could not care less, at least on the surface. But then she comes home after being with her friends and goes, one of my friends told me that I look really good in this dress. And she's just high on that compliment. And you're like, I said it. And she's like, well, yeah, but you have to say it. And then I'm like, well, I know there's husbands who actually don't say nice things to their wives. So that's actually not true. But we do. We experience things differently. And especially kids sort of need to hear it from somewhere else. So I think that's another great lesson. Find people who can say things to your kids that you agree with, but they need to hear it from that outside source, right?
People that truly see your children for who they are, you know, and I think that going back to how we ended up in this place, taking what I know about development and, you know, growth and human growth and development and what's developmentally appropriate, and Jim's deep, you know, personal development and learning about yourself and knowing, okay, this is what I'm into and this isn't, but to then be able to have people around your children that see them for who they are and appreciate them and celebrate them the same way that you said, accept, there you are, accept and appreciate, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think of someone in our life that a teacher particularly had a struggle with. And I was in the building a couple of times and I saw this teacher struggling with this young boy. And I thought, I adore this young man. Like, where is this struggle? He's such an incredible human. But it's because the teacher had an expectation of how he was supposed to show up. But that wasn't his expectation for how he was supposed to show up. He's like, but I show up as myself. I don't know who you want me to be, but I'm going to show up as myself. And I do think it's important that other people see your children and pour into your children for who they know that they're supposed to be too.
Well, and I think that's another one that I tell especially adults about, well, I would just watch Netflix and do nothing, is it's because you're exhausted by trying to be someone you're not all day at a job that doesn't fit you. Once you got that energy back, once you watched 7 days in a row of Netflix, ate whatever you wanted, finally got some sleep, and started asking, what do I want instead of what does the world want from me? You'd find different answers, right? It's just like people who retire and they go, I'm going to golf for the rest of my life. And after 3 weeks of golfing every day, they're like, oh, golf was a nice alternative to what I used to do, but I don't want to do it all the time. It was a side thing. I was so exhausted and frustrated from what I had to do. It was an escape, but now I need something. I need something real. So you hit on a couple things, and one was a little bit back, but I think that's the other thing about teachers, right? I think some teachers can be a really good fit for our kids and other teachers aren't. Our youngest daughter, who's, like I said, has been our toughest customer, she had a teacher named Mrs. Jones in, I think, first grade. And Mrs. Jones wore cowboy boots with her dress, and Mrs. Jones was divorced, which was scandalous at this little religious school, you know. And Mrs. Jones was just a little different than the other teachers. And Mrs. Jones had no problem with Sophia, right? And that year went great, because Mrs. Jones got it. And then the next year she went to Mrs. George, and these are real names. These people aren't on the internet, I don't think. And plus Mrs. Jones, I think that's anonymous in and of itself. And Mrs. George, it sounds fake. But she was like 75 years old, and she had one rule, which was I'm in charge, and everybody needs to be 75 years old too in third grade, you know. And that year went terrible because Sophia was the worst, and Sophia was out of control, and Sophia was bad. And same kid, same school, different teacher. And it goes to your thing. Some people just get a kid, or they know that it's fine, or what they usually is they see themselves in that kid and they're like, it'll be great because this is going to turn out fine. But the other thing I wanted to say is you said something about discipline. And I put a quote in the book that I love, and I think it really summarizes some things. Pavarotti, the famous opera singer, he goes, people always ask me, how am I so disciplined? And I tell them it's not discipline, it's devotion. And that's what I heard when you were saying, Jim, when you were saying that you were just passionate about studying this personal development stuff on your own. You weren't doing it because you were supposed to. You weren't doing it as a requirement. You weren't doing it as a responsibility. And I tell people this about my speaking. I say, like let's say when you guys hired me to come down to the Keys, and I came down. If you would have called me up that day and said, look, Dave, you can stay at the house and we'll still pay you your fee and we'll cover your expenses because you came down here, but the schedule changed and we just don't need you. I wouldn't celebrate that like snow day. Oh, I get a day off. I didn't have to do my job and I got paid. I'd be like, no, I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And now I don't get the opportunity to do this thing that I really like doing. And then also, it wouldn't be years later and we're having this talk about how it actually helped your kids. I know it's going to be beneficial. I know it's going to be valuable, but I also enjoy the process of it. And I wouldn't want to get out of it. Yeah. Right.
So true.
And so it isn't discipline. It's not like, Dave, how do you go to those speeches? How do you teach those same lessons again when you've said them before? It's like, because I want to, because I like it, because it feels good, because it's who I am. It's not an act. It's not, like you said, it's not, what do people want from me and how do I pretend to give them what they think I should be? And so I think that discipline devotion thing is really big. And I think we oversell discipline in our world. And only because we think we're seeing it in all sorts of places where we're seeing devotion. Oh no, discipline is what gets you there. I would argue that 95% of what looks like discipline is devotion. It just feels hard to you, but to the person, it's something that they want to be doing. I mean, you do a podcast, and I actually remembered that along the way. I'm like, yeah, I'd be like, we've talked along the way. You guys have heard, I've been on your podcast, right? So now you're like, how did it take you so long, Dave? Well, I didn't have a podcast. But, you know, when you're doing your podcast episodes, you're not like, here we go, we got to record the podcast.
No. And I was going to say, in fact, 2020, we had pandemic was 2020, right? Okay.
2020,
we had four children of our own. And then we took in 2 extra children. And then one night we even had 12 children sleeping under our roof. I mean, you weren't wrong when you said in the beginning, we like have a bunch of children and then we have some more. And then when we're done, then we get some more. It is like that sometimes, and our office was in our bedroom because we couldn't go to the office anymore. So 12 children. And then somehow we ended up with pandemic rabbits. Jim, we went in for goldfish.
That sounds like a terrifying movie. I think you should look into getting that done. Pandemic rabbits.
They caused the pandemic. They came during the pandemic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But so hear me out.
It sounds like rabbits with a pandemic. It sounds like they're spreading Ebola.
No.
Yeah,
but
pandemic
mind
rabbits.
Jim and I were like, hey, we should start a podcast in like the middle of all of this, because, you know, we've got nothing else to do with 12 children, 2 rabbits, our office and our bedroom, and like the black mist arriving. But so like speaking so much to what you're saying, people say that sometimes, like, how do you do all this? And I am with you. I am not disciplined, but man, am I devoted. Like, I have the best time. I've been looking forward to this with you. Yeah. And I look forward to every time.
This is a big one. This is, I'm very excited. I've never in all 51 years, Dave, heard discipline can be overridden by devotion. That makes so much sense.
Beautiful. And I tell you, even if Jim and I, because I mean, we're human and married and do all these things together, there are times when we're going to get on a podcast and I really don't want to talk to him or sit next to him. Like really, I don't want to see his face.
I feel that way about Jim. I thought I was trying to just get you on the podcast, but I only had his email. So it's like I couldn't slide into your DMs because I had to go through, the gatekeeper.
I thought it was weird when Dave texted me, hey, could you ask Jamie to come on the podcast? I was like, wait a minute, Dave. I should.
Yeah. He really pushed himself onto me.
I really inserted myself.
But I say it's not a discipline though when we show up, because it's kind of like date night, which is one of our major rhythms that we help families with, is like, even when, there's a little bit of like, oh, maybe it doesn't fit into the schedule, or, oh, I don't feel like doing these plans, like whatever it may be, but the devotion to the action. So like, I love my husband. I want a deeper marriage. It's not a discipline to show up on date night. It's a devotion. Podcasting, even if there's that little bit, like I show up and because I'm super excited, I know that whatever conversation we get into, I'm going to learn. I'm going to grow. I hope I help somebody else. I'm going to connect, and I'm going to be like, my vibration is going to be that much greater afterwards. But it's not a discipline, just like you're saying. There's so much devotion in that creation.
So here I think about it, Dave. I would think, like, thinking about you and knowing you well, your running probably started off as a painful discipline, but now you're just devoted. When I'm like, where the hell is Dave? He's in like
what country is he running in right now?
A run. I'm like, golly. I'm like,
and to us, that sounds miserable.
That's what's hard for people to understand. That's right. And so then people they use me to sell the wrong thing. They say, be disciplined like Dave. I go, I'm not disciplined.
No, you're devoted.
I want to be outside. I want to be moving. I want to be seeing whatever it is, wherever I am. Like, I'll give you one example that might help people understand how it could be devotion. The last day my wife and I were in Paris, it was 2017. We had like a mid-afternoon flight, but you need to be there in the morning, whatever. Got up at 6 a.m. and I'm running. I ran 12 miles in Paris, and I saw every major site in Paris by myself with no crowds at sunrise. There wasn't a single moment that I was like, ugh. There's no better way than running. Walking would have taken forever and been even more difficult, be on your feet for twice as much time. But I'd stop and take pictures. The day before, when we're seeing the Eiffel Tower, it's the only reason I could see it is because I'm 6'6". It was a wonderful experience for me. It's devotion, but people sell it. But the problem is the influencers sell it that way. They're devoted. And here's how I know. And I'm working on trying to explain this. And that's part of the reason I do the podcast, is to think through some of these ideas. People who sell discipline, especially physical discipline online, are liars. And here's how I know most of the time. Because this has happened to me. They get injured, which means they can't go into the pain cave. And they can't do all these difficult things that are tough in the moment, but it's delayed gratification. It makes you stronger in the later. Bullshit. Because they get injured, and they won't do the rest that they apparently crave and do the nothing that apparently is easy. It's actually hard for them to do the easy thing because they like to exercise. They like to move. They like to push their body. You get chemicals from that. And they get depressed, sometimes extremely so, because they can't do the supposedly hard thing. No, that's because the heart. Here's how I know. If you told one of those people, you're so disciplined, take 2 weeks off, only get up to go to the bathroom and get your food, and just watch television and eat junk food and gain weight for 2 weeks.
That sounds terrible.
They might not make it from their mental health standpoint because they're not going into the pain cave. They're doing what they want to do, right? And I think that's so important. So we have a limited time, although, well, it's only because I have another call. I think we might split this one up into two because you guys are so amazing. But you started talking about sort of the work that you do. Tell people a little bit more about 18 Summers, because they should be listening to the Imperfectionist Podcast, but they should be listening to the 18 Summers podcast. They should get the 18 Summers book, but you do stuff kind of beyond that. Tell people about the work that you do to help families. Tell people a little bit about your philosophy. Tell people why people need to be paying attention to what you guys are up to.
Here's the book. I was going to say, I wish I had a physical copy.
There it is.
So the family board meeting.
There we go.
Yeah. So it is something that was such a heart work. Now we actually get the podcast that we wanted. Here we go.
Now, I have a big head. If I get half of it in, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Oh, what was really fun about
that's the book, The Family Board Meeting, right? That's the book.
Yes.
Yep.
And this is where we started because, well, it's not exactly where we started, but first edition, self-published, middle of the night. I was on a futon nursing a baby. Like, it was really a true labor of love. But we had a friend that said, hey, your story matters. And I keep hearing you speak. Jim had never gotten up, like, he did a family talk that I literally was like, you cannot not try this, and he submitted and he got picked. How painful was that for you?
It was horrible, Dave. I broke down in front of 600 people crying on stage. I was like, this is the worst. This is horrible. I hate this feeling. But there was that. Now I'm going to start.
He got a standing ovation because it mattered.
I was devoted to the message. Yeah. Extremely devoted.
Yeah.
So.
And sometimes we still cry.
I've been a professional speaker for 20 years, and I did a talk on my 4 Factors of Effective Leadership book the other day in North Carolina for a client that I've probably spoken at their conference like 10 times. And then they asked me who else should speak, and I get them somebody else. And then after a year off, they're like, you got something else you could tell us again? And so I wrote that book in 2006. It's been almost 20 years. And I tell a story about Rick and Dick Hoyt, who did the Ironmans together. Rick had
I love them. Yeah,
complete, physical disability, couldn't move, and his dad pushed him in Ironmans and marathons, and they're an incredibly inspiring story. And so I use it as an example of leadership because they had tremendous influence without doing any of the things that quote unquote leaders do. Right? They didn't have organizational power and position and all these kind of things. And I used to end the talk with this quote from a movie called The Emperor's Club: "Great ambition without contribution is without significance. What will your contribution be? How will history remember you?" And then the next slide is a statue that they put up in Dick and Rick Hoyt's hometown of Dick pushing Rick in the... And I just was like,
I get it.
Because it's like, that's it. It's a lifetime of devotion to his son and to this thing. And this is what it gets you. People, it's usually generals on statues and politicians on statues and celebrities on statues and athletes on statues. And this is just a guy who decided to treat his son with respect when the doctor said you don't have to. And so, yeah, I'm 20 years into this. So we're breaking a lot of rules on this podcast already. If somebody tells you it's unprofessional or inappropriate to cry on stage or be emotional, be vulnerable, they're wrong, right? They're wrong. If that's where you're coming from, and if it's legit, if you're fake crying, I think you're an awful person. But if you're so into what you're saying that it affects you emotionally in an authentic way, that's what you should do. And that will resonate with people.
And it's the difference between devotion and what was the other word? Discipline. And it was the same way with like your book, your big heart work, and the same way with Dick and Rick. This was born out of becoming our family and Jim wanting to connect with the boys. And he found a way that was phenomenal, and others saw it and said, hey, how do you do that? Yeah. And so fast forward, 2 or 3 years ago, our book got #1 on the Wall Street Journal, which is insane because we had no idea it was even launching that. We had a publisher picked us up, no longer was itself, but it was one of those things. It's because people saw it's not the discipline. It's not showing up. It's because you really want to in your heart. And I think that's how and that's the work that we do. We just, it's such a devotion to us. We love helping families. We love helping parents. We love helping relationships.
So we go ahead, Jim. We do talks, workshops, and some retreats to help entrepreneur families succeed at home. I'd say that's the best way we can do it. We've worked with EO, YPO, met you at Gathering of Titans. So that's what we do. 18 summers, because I have a real estate investment company, that I'm a big part of, and Jamie helps with our properties as well. But the family education for entrepreneurs, we don't want you just to be successful in business. We want you to be successful at home, and we have a great book and some talks and workshops that really help with that. And
give them the synopsis, because I think it's a really simple idea. One of the things I'm working on a book about public speaking right now. And the really simple idea is that you should have one really simple idea for your talk. Too many people are like, I got a lot of things I need to tell them and a lot of things we need to cover. And I got a lot of things I want to talk about. I think what's great about your book, again, it's called Family Board Meetings, right? Is it's a really simple idea. It's that on a regular basis, you need to get one-on-one with your kids. So tell them the really simple idea, because I think, I want them to get the book, but telling them the ideas, honestly, I think what's going to get them there.
If you don't, then I'm okay giving you cliff notes. And so we set a few rhythms in our life that are based around 3 principles. And that's one-on-one time, absolute game changer with Jamie, with each of my children.
We call them special dates at my house. I take my kids out one-on-one. We call them special dates. Yep.
And I remember talking to you about them. Yeah. And that one-on-one time is a game changer. It is an unfair advantage to having a strong family life and having strong relationships. The second thing we talk about is intermittent tech fasting. This phone can help us stay in touch and set up this thing, this great interview, but you got to have times of unavailability. You have to be able to shut that off. So we talk about, along with this one-on-one time, using tech fasting, not being available, being closed off to the rest of the world with that, and how we use that not only one-on-one, but with our family time. And the third thing is it's about getting into fun activities and inspiring activities. And in that time, saying the unspoken. These are the times that you can express extreme admiration, gratitude, apologies. And
on date night, we add one powerful question.
We ask powerful questions.
Well, I didn't know what you were adding on date night. I thought maybe that was going to take this to a different level here. Yeah.
Fun deck of cards. We need to send you some. So there's 52 questions, one each week, because you should go on a date a week. And there are some fun,
Okay. I like it. Spicy ones, as they call it. I like your tech fasting one. I tell people, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm sorry I texted you real late at night last night, or I'm sorry I sent that email, I was working on something. I'm like, look, my ringer hasn't been on my phone since 2006. I click that little button down. My phone, I go to my phone when I'm ready to go to my phone. My phone doesn't assault me all day with the things that it needs from me. I get to it when I get to it. I don't have it attack me all day. I think that's a really good principle.
Yeah, and it's very doable to put into your life, and you will see changes. You will see,
and it'll start as discipline, probably.
But then it becomes devotion. It's like, I can't wait to turn off my phone to be with my daughter today.
Yeah,
and so anyway, those are a couple of the principles, and we kind of teach, how do you stay consistent with them? How do you keep that rhythmized? And that's the whole thing, because there's so many things out there, Dave, that'll teach us how to be great in our business, but not how to be, strong in our home life while running a business. Because that 13%, like you talk about, it's a weird, not easy quest. And to keep family life strong with it, there's just not a lot out there to help teach that bridge. And that's kind of where we're like, we can help bridge that. It's been experiment. It's been ugly at times, but man, we've really tried to go deep into this, and we've figured out some ways to bridge that. And we just
I think that's a good way to wrap up. There's a strength weakness combination on the Freak Factor assessment called obsessive workaholic is the weakness, but motivated ambitious is the strength. So one time I was doing the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards, and it was really cool for me because I stayed at the Waldorf Astoria, and I'm like, I grew up in a trailer park. I'm not supposed to be at the Waldorf Astoria. I think they're going to come get me and move me to the Red Roof Inn down the street. And then I got to speak at the New York Stock Exchange, which was huge. And we did a couple of workshops, and we did the assessment. And one of the people got obsessive workaholic. They put that down as a weakness, and then they got motivated ambitious as a strength. And sure enough, they were at the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards. They were a kid building a business. And he said, you're saying I should be more. I should dump gasoline on it and light it on fire, right? But my girlfriend doesn't want me to be more motivated and ambitious and more obsessive workaholic. And I said, okay, but you should just be more motivated and ambitious than you are for a broader life, right? I said, do you have goals for your business? Yes. I said, do you have goals for your relationship with your girlfriend? No. Do you regularly invest time in your business? Yes. Do you regularly invest time in your relationship with your girlfriend? No. I said, I'm telling you, you're not ambitious enough. Yeah. You only have the ambition to have a good business. You don't have the ambition to have a good life, to have good relationships, to have good health. I mean, so that's a great example there of people are saying, I'm too much of a workaholic. I have too many big goals. No. You actually have really narrow goals, have a good business, and you're sacrificing everything to get there. If you truly are too motivated and ambitious, let's broaden it, right? Why doesn't it include your family? Why doesn't it include date nights? Why doesn't it include one-on-one time with your kids? Why doesn't it include physical fitness? You're actually giving yourself an easy out and actually being a tiny bit lazy by saying, I'm only going to use my energy for this one thing by sacrificing everything else. So I think that's a great example of how this imperfection stuff ties in. He was like, no, she's telling me I need to dial it back to have a good relationship. And I'm like, no, you have to turn it up to have a good relationship. you need to invest in your relationship the way you invest in your business, and you're choosing not to do that right now. The problem isn't you're too motivated. It's you're not actually motivated enough in the way that you're thinking about this.
And I'm really glad you brought this up, because there's a problem we have in our marriage where, do you know where I'm going?
No, I don't, but
I mean, I charge extra for the marriage counseling part of the podcast. No, we're supposed to be helping the people. I'm not supposed to be saving.
We're not supposed to be helping in an imperfect way. Okay, so
I already got you on his lap for an hour. I mean, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do.
Okay, but now I need you to help me.
Okay.
That helped him.
Oh, she's like, oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, so passion. This is one thing. Jim gets loud and intense, and he's like very passionate is
when
what
I'm
he
describing
said.
Something,
or when he's mad, but not even at me, or if he is mad, like whatever it is, it's like big and it's loud and it's like, and I'm always like, well, my freak factor, kid you not, it said passionate. There's a good side to this. Like, this is a good, you can't expect me to be passionate if I can't be, but good decipher. Bring it, baby. All the passion.
In all the things.
Broaden this passion, right?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
But no, I'm just telling on you a little bit. But it is.
No, but that's another one. Another one is somebody says, I wish my partner didn't get so upset. And it's like, people who get really upset also get really excited. They get really, right? People, my middle daughter is very sensitive and very introverted and very quiet. And we'll be on a walk outside. And she'll go, volume. Because she thinks I'm talking so loud that someone inside their home is going to hear me criticizing it. She's so sensitive to it, right? But that's me. I'm going to get very fired up about a bad thing, but I'm also going to get very fired up about a good thing, right? And so what I tell people is you can't tell someone I only want the high level of emotion when it's positive,
right?
But you can never express. It's like an emotional person is an emotional person, right? A passionate person. I mean, I'm doing it right now. I'm alone in my office, just throwing my arms around like I'm on stage because I'm a lunatic, right?
Me too.
But what I tell people is, if you don't believe me and you trade in your passionate person for a different person, pretty soon you'll be saying, well, yeah, they never get upset, but they don't even have any emotion at all. And I wonder if they ever appreciate anything that happens. And you're like, oh, well, that's the downside of calm and laid back, is the person's expressionless. But you don't get the benefit of never gets upset with me, but also the benefit of, also super passionate about stuff. That's not the same person, right? That's not the same person. Yeah.
No, and it's so true. Because like, you buy me flowers. He doesn't just bring home one thing of flowers. He will literally buy all of the flowers in the store.
They call that love bombing now. Good job, Jim. That's a red flag, by the way, Jamie. Love bombing, I think, is a red flag. Not 500 children later. You're right. Yeah, the red flags. There's so many red flags. You guys have ignored all of them. So now it's time to just embrace it.
Just kept going.
Yeah.
We're just delusional, but we're passionate and devoted to it.
This has been fantastic. We need to do this again. All right, so that wraps up this episode of the Imperfectionist Podcast. My name, as always, is David Rendall. I want to say a special thank you to Jim and Jamie for staying on for so long with us. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, leave a review, rate the podcast, send us a comment. If you're looking to connect with them, check them out, Jim and Jamie Shiels. Check out the book, Board Meetings. Just some amazing stuff. They're amazing people. And it was a real pleasure to have them on. Can't wait to see you next time on the Imperfectionist Podcast.